And today I want to show you how you can use Apigee to apply OAuth protection in front of any bare MCP server. So Apigee as MCP gateway. To illustrate this, I've got an example MCP server that I've implemented in Python. Let me show you that. Here's the code. It's using the fast MCP framework, so probably something familiar to you if you've used Python to build MCP before. There's some middleware in this MCP server, but it's not doing any enforcement. It's just logging a header, so nothing really interesting. And the tools are related to air quality. So there's two tools associated to resolving place names to latitude longitude pairs, and that's here in the source code. And then this one maybe is the more interesting tool. It given an input of a latitude longitude pair, it retrieves some sensor readings using the open air quality API that's available on the public network, retrieves sensor information and then returns that to the agent. So kind of three related tools in the MCP server, but no security in this. Just pretty basic for illustrative purposes. I've deployed it to Cloud Run, and I can interact with it with the MCP inspector. So that's just kind of your standard MCP inspector that you may be familiar with. I can click into this, list the tools. There are the three tools that I mentioned, place name to lat long. Let's see, if I put in Carmel, California, I should be able to run that tool. There's no authentication required, and it's going to tell me, yep, here's the latitude, longitude for Carmel. So it's working in the MCP inspector. Now I've got another way to kind of illustrate this working, and that is an agent that I've built using the Google Agent Development Kit, ADK, again in Python. And nothing real exotic here either. You can see this is mostly what you have to do to build an agent in the ADK. So I've got my root agent, I got a name, attach a model to it, the system instruction, which just says, hey, you're an agent, you know about air quality, and a list of tools. Where do the tools come from? They come from the MCP server, which is at this endpoint. This is the Cloud Run endpoint. And there's a class in the ADK for Python called MCP toolset. I wrapped it with a cache just because I found that the ADK does makes the tools list call fairly often. So what I try to do is just cache that. That's just a kind of a wrapper that just doesn't call tools list that often. All right, so that's my my tool set. Or that's my agent, my ADK agent. And now let's see it work. ADK is really nice. Aside from the really clever programming model, it's got a nice command line tool that allows me to run the agent from the terminal, and then it'll start up a user interface through which I can interact with the agent. So that's the UI connecting to the agent, which then connects to the MCP server. And I'm going to just say, hello there, introduce myself, and oops, I need to create a new session. Let me do that first. Hello there. And you can see some diagnostic information in the background popping up from that terminal, and it's saying, hey, I can help you with air quality. What city are you interested in? And I'll say Tulsa, Oklahoma. How about that? I'm interested in that. And it's going to do a resolution of that name to latitude, longitude, and then it's going to tell me, it's going to go query the OpenAQ API and get sensor readings for Tulsa, and it says the PM 2.5 reading is 4.6. And I can say, what about, I don't know, Fresno, California, and it should do the same thing, resolve the place to a lat long, and then get the air quality. In this case, multiple different sensors in Fresno are available, multiple different readings, and it's just kind of summarizing them here. Okay, so what did we see? Just the agent built in ADK is interacting with an MCP. Now, what I'd like to do is put a facade in front of that MCP, which is an Apigee API proxy. So it's mostly going to just pass through requests that come in. Instead of the agent connecting directly to that Cloud Run service, it'll connect to the Apigee proxy. And Apigee's mostly going to just pass through. There is the target in Apigee, and you can see that's the same URL as that Cloud Run service. But I have instructed Apigee to apply a basic control, and that is look for an authorization header and then verify the JWT in that authorization header for inbound requests when it's a tools call. When the agent is saying, resolve this place name or get the air quality for a particular latitude and longitude. So that's the only time Apigee will be verifying the JWT. Now, if you know MCP, you'll know that there are other method calls, MCP method calls, that will be used between client and MCP server. Things like initialize and tools list, inquiring the list of tools that the server makes available. The reason Apigee is not checking the token in those calls is because currently there is a limitation in the ADK in Python in which the MCP toolset does not use the authentication that's configured for initialization or for tools list. That's an outstanding issue. I'd like to see that authorization header for those calls as well, but right now, agents built with the ADK will send in the authorization header only with tools call. So that's why Apigee is only enforcing the authentication in tools call. A little more detail on what's happening in that verified JWT. It's really just checking, is it an RS-256 signed JOT? And this is where Apigee will get the JWKS, the public keys, and that Apigee will verify that's the issuer identified by that property. And those settings are just here in the proxy. So this is an auth0 developer tenant. There's the JWKS, and there is the issuer name. In this case, that's what it's going to be using. So Apigee is mostly pass-through. In a case where it's calling, or the client is calling a tool, it'll verify the JWT. And if that signature verification fails, then Apigee will just reject, return an error, and the client will not be able to proceed. If it succeeds, then Apigee just passes it through, and everything continues. Now, very simple control in this case. You could add other things like a rate limit or routing or responding from cache. All of those are possible in an Apigee proxy, but I wanted to keep it really simple. So all it does is just check the inbound JWT and verify the signature. All right. What we're going to do is start a debug session in Apigee that allows us to, it will allow us to see the transactions that are flowing. So that's the Apigee thing. Now, how do I get the agent to use that? Well, I got to tell the agent, don't use that bare endpoint. Use this, the Apigee protected endpoint. And we're going to need this OAuth stuff. So I'm going to uncomment that. And really, this is just standard stuff, standard OAuth stuff. So I've got the auth scheme, which is just OAuth 2 authorization code. There's the authorization URL, token URL, and the scopes. And then we're saying when you connect to the OAuth endpoint, you're going to use this client ID, this secret, and this audience. And then the ADK is going to do the right thing when we try to use this protected MCP server. So same agent, just slightly different configuration on the MCP toolset, adding in this OAuth scheme and credential. Okay, so let's restart the modified agent. We've got our debugger running in Apigee, and we will now flip back over to the development UI for the agent. So same UI, and I'm going to say hello there. And we see, again, the diagnostic information coming into the terminal in the back. Now it's saying, hey, what city are you interested in? And I'll say, how about Austin, Texas? Now, this is the part that's protected. And so you can see that I'm being now challenged to sign in. So I'm going to sign in with my my email address and my password. And once I sign in, I'm identified. Now Auth0 is saying, okay, do you authorize this app to see your profile? And I have to click accept for that. Once I do that, you can see the agent has gotten confirmation that I've said that, and it's now going to proceed and retrieve that information. So it's after I've signed in, it's able to complete that place name to latitude longitude mapping for Austin. It gets the, whatever that is, and then getting the air quality sensor readings for Austin. You can see it's between 6 and 14 in Austin, so quite a bit higher than Carmel at this moment in any case. So that shows you how you can use the Apigee proxy as a facade in front of MCP, between MCP clients and MCP servers. These are the transactions that flowed between the ADK powered agent and the fast MCP server through Apigee. And if I click through these, you'll see the first one's going to be an initialize request. That's just what MCP clients do. They send in an initialize. This one will be a notification that the client is in fact initialized. And I expect the next one to be tools list. And as I click through these, see there's the tools list and the response coming back from the MCP server. There's all the tools, and that gets dumped into the agent context for providing it to the LLM. But you can see in this trace here, the verify JWT policy step is being skipped for all of those, for the initialize and for the tools list. It is only later when we call this one, which is tools call, that is to say, call this tool, place name to lat long, that the verify is happening, the token verification is happening. And when I select that, that policy in the trace, I can see all the verified properties that come in from the signed JWT that was issued by Auth0. So you can see the issuer there, and the various claims, groups, and so on, all in that access token, and it expires. Looks like it expires in 24 hours. So that succeeds, that signature succeeds, and then processing continues, and the request goes to the upstream MCP server, the bare MCP server, and you can see here's the responses coming back for place name Austin. We get the latitude and longitude of those numbers, and then subsequently we'll see another tools call that says, okay, given that latitude longitude, tell me the air quality for that location, and that's the subsequent call that we see here. So all that super interesting. It is particular though to the ADK that it behaves that way. So just to illustrate that way with respect to the authentication and authorization. So just to illustrate that, I'd like to show you something else. Gemini CLI is actually an MCP client. So it's a pre-built agent. It's not a custom agent, it's a pre-built agent, but it is able to connect with MCP servers. And here's that bare MCP server. So I should be able to start up Gemini, and because the MCP server is configured in the Gemini configuration file, Gemini should be able to just connect right into that. There's no authentication required. So I should be able to see the tools if I use MCP list. There are the air quality tools, and I should be able to interact with this thing by saying, tell me the air quality around Bellingham, Washington. And what Gemini will do is get confirmation from me that I agree. You can invoke this tool. this tool. So I'm just going to say for all these tools that are available from the air quality server, you go ahead, you can invoke them. And you can see it's converting Bellingham to the lat long and then getting the sensor readings. And now it's sending that back up to the LLM to ask it to format a response, which I suppose should be a bulleted list. I don't know why it's taken so long. But this is just the way agents work sometimes. There can be a little delay. So there's my readings for Bellingham. Looks like between 4 and 7 on the PM 2.5 in Bellingham at this time. Okay, so that's, again, unauthenticated. But what if we modify that and use the Apigee protected endpoint and the auth 0 client ID and so on, very similar to the configuration that we set up for the ADK, but now we're providing that in a format that Gemini can handle. So we'll start up Gemini again. Now it's just got a different MCP server. And we should be able to do MCP list. And what's going to happen, it's going to say, you're not connected because you need to authenticate. So in Gemini CLI, there's an explicit auth step where I have to say, okay, I want to authenticate for that MCP server. And it's telling me, okay, you need to authenticate. Now, if you were alert, you saw in the background, there was some flashing going on in this window, and that is because I'm already signed in to auth 0. And so there was a window that appeared momentarily, but it's unnecessary for me to actually authenticate again because there's a cookie. So I can now do MCP list, and because I'm authenticated, I now have those tools available. And I can say, tell me about the air quality in Portland, Oregon, and it'll go through that same kind of translation and retrieval of the air quality information. But you can see the experience in the Gemini CLI is different than the experience that we saw in the ADK. With Gemini CLI, I can't even see the tools at the MCP server that is protected by OAuth until I authenticate, until I explicitly authenticate. With ADK, it's a little bit different. You can see the tools, and then you need to authenticate before invoking them. However, that may change based on resolution of this open ticket. Okay, so what did we see? We saw a bare MCP server. I deployed it into Cloud Run. I produced, I showed that just works with an ADK-based agent or with a Gemini CLI-based agent. I showed an Apigee API proxy that acts as a facade on that MCP server and enforces controls on tool invocation by clients or by agents, whether custom built like the one built with the ADK or off-the-shelf agents like the Gemini CLI. Apigee works with both. So it's a nice MCP gateway, nice way to provide some governance on your MCP servers as you're scaling these things up. And this API proxy will work for lots of different MCP servers. There's no problem scaling this up to large numbers of clients and servers on either side. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments. Till next time, keep it digital.